Hi, welcome to Bookwood. It's cold. Let's go inside. Come in.
I'm glad you chose to spend some time with me. I promised we would talk about the series we are reading. Let's do this today. Before I dive into the series I am reading, I want to tell you about how I will be addressing series on this channel. I will discuss the first book in a series in the monthly wrap-up video. Sequels and final books will be mentioned. I prefer to discuss a series as a whole, and that's why we will have a trimestral series wrap-up video. In my goals videos, I told you that I want to keep the series I'm actively reading at about 20. I make that choice because I don't want to have too much time in between the reading of the different books, but also because I am afraid I will finally mingle up the different storylines. I find it easier to prioritizing reading a sequel when I know exactly which ones I can choose from. I like to keep track of my series and not having too many makes that task simpler. There are in total 16 series I want to talk to you about today. I'll divide them in two groups. The series of which all books have been published and those that aren't completed yet. The first series I want to talk to you about is Spice and Wolf by Isuna Hasekura. This is a Japanese light novel series. I have read 5 of them and I really like them. We follow Lawrence Craft, who is a traveling merchant in this old Europe-like country, who meets Hollow, a pagan harvest goddess. Hollow is so done with living in this field and granting it prosperity that she decides that she wants to travel back all the way to the village she came from. She doesn't know exactly where that is, only that it is up north. And together with Lawrence, she will find out where to go and she will travel the whole way to it. The banter between Hollow and Lawrence is very nice, and Hollow is quite an interesting lady to read about. This is not one of my priority series. I read a book every now and then. Another series is the Wyndham and Banerjee mystery series by Abir Mukherjee. This is a murder mystery series in which every book holds its own mystery to solve, and a little backstory about the 1920s India and Gandhi's strive for independence. And there is also a very small part about Captain Wyndham himself. I have read the 3 first of this 5 books series and will be reading the 2 next ones this year, probably somewhere around June. Whilst preparing for this video, I discovered that end November another book came out with the same characters, but it hasn't been listed as part of this series. I will probably be reading that one as well. The next series I want to talk to you about is Rouletabille by Gaston Leroux. Gaston Leroux is the author of The Phantom of the Opera, and I know that the first book in this series, Le Mystère de la Chambre Jaune, has been translated into a book with the title The Mystery of the Yellow Room. This is a closed-door mystery. I reread this book last May and I really enjoyed it, and I discovered that there are way more than the 2 that I own. There are 8 in total. So at some point I would like to read the 6 other books. A series that is a priority is The Inventor's Secrets by Andrea Cremer. In this steampunk alternative history series we follow Charlotte, who is a child of the resistance. She comes across a very strange boy that in the French edition is called Grave, and they set out to find where this boy comes from, since he has absolutely no memory about who he is and where he is from. This is a young adult series that really surprised me, and I hope to finish it soon. Another series that is not a priority is Thiziri by Alexiane de Lys. This is a French series that is more middle grade to young adult, and it's about a girl that discovers that the world is not quite as she thinks. She lives under a dome in a world that is said to be altered by some climate change problems. A mystery, murder, and a disappearance will set her off on a quest that will lead her to find out that things are not quite as she thought they are. I enjoyed listening to this book, but not as much as many others. I guess I am a bit too old for it. I have left it on my series I want to finish list because I still got a little bit intrigued by what is exactly going on. I will read it if the time comes, but if it doesn't, then this series will be DNF'd at the end of this year. I also want to finish up Six of Crows. I read the first at the end of last year and I really enjoyed my read. These books are by Bardugo and are set in the same world as the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I liked the heist aspect of it and the very unlikely crew that goes out on this quest. We meet some thieves that pair up with some Grishas to go save a scientist so they can, in return, save the world. Another series that I would like to finish, but will not be the first one I go to, is the Moriarty bookshop. Yes, I love the first book in which we follow a lady that sees her life drastically change and that goes to spend some time at her uncle's and family's bookshop, in which she slowly builds herself up again. Another priority series is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is a duology that is set in the same world as the Folk of the Heirs trilogy. We follow Oak, that was still a boy in that trilogy but now has grown up to be a young man and a prince, who sets off for a mission to the north. And he absolutely wants the help of Solen, who he met as a child in the main trilogy. Solen, of course, will help, but it will not be easy for her, as she will have to leave behind the ideas she has about Oak as a child, has to deal with him as a prince, and meanwhile she also have to face every horror she left behind her. I really liked this first volume. I thought we got back in the same style of story and I really liked this very grey atmosphere in it. So I'm looking forward to read the second book. The next 8 series are series that are still ongoing. In 3 of them I am up to date. The first one I am up to date with is Kimen by Louis San. This is a French manga that should have 4 volumes in the end, written by Louis San, who is a French YouTuber, half Japanese, half French, and who tries to explain the differences between the Japanese culture and the European culture. In this manga series we follow a boy who's also called Louis, who travels to Japan on the request of his biological parents with a mask that they left with him when they put him up to adoption, because he wants to know the secrets of this mask. We will follow the story of that along of the discovery of Japan by Louis, which is often quite funny. I enjoyed reading this first volume and I am impatient to have the next one. I am also up to date with the A Study in Drowning series by Ava Reid, in which we follow Effie, who is convinced that she has visions of the Fairy King, and that links these to a book that is written by her favorite author, Moriarty. She studies architecture, and one day this gives her the opportunity to go visit and redesign the house of her favorite author. There she will meet another student, a literary student, who wants to prove that this author and this book are a fraud. I really liked the dark academia vibes it has and how the mystery slowly unravels. I'm also up to date with the Summoner's Circle by ST Gibson, which is a series of the book Evocation. in which we meet David, who is like this very young prodigy, has it all together guy, but slowly he starts to experience strange episodes that are clearly linked to some supernatural events, since he is a mage and he will have to contact his ex and his new wife to find out what is exactly happening to him and how to stop this. That leaves us with 5 series on which I am not up to date. 3 of them are manga. The first is Cat Companions, Maruru and Hachi by Yuri Sonada. In this series we meet Maruru, who is a cat that has lived with humans and that had a very nice and cozy life, but gets lost on a walk out of sight the house. And Maruru will meet Hachi, who is a die-hard street cat. They will have some troubles before getting along and becoming the kings of the street. We will follow the adventures of those 2 cute guys and a lot of other cats during this series. We read this series as a family, which is always a nice thing to do. The next one is The Weakest Tamer Began a Journey to Pick Up Trash by, I think, Tou Fukino. And this is a fantasy series in which we meet Ivy, a little girl that has to become a tamer, and of which discovered that she has no stars. No stars means basically that as a tamer she cannot even tame the weakest creature, and so she is kind of cast out of her community. She will go hide in the forest and try to survive, and she will meet this cute little blurb called Sora. And of course we suspect that there is more to it than what the eyes can see. We will follow her traveling her country and all the people she meets and the adventures she gets into. I recently started to read Moriarty, the Patriot by Ryosuke Takeuchi. And in this manga series we follow Moriarty, who is the good guy and who tries to change the social class caste system of the London in his time period, and in which Sherlock is the one who tries to stop him. I have not read a lot yet, so I cannot tell you much more about this series. The next one is Emely Wilde by Heather Fawcett, in which I have read 1 book and I am impatient to read the second, since it arrived at my library not so long ago. We follow Emely Wilde, who is a scientific in this world populated with strange beings. And in the first book she sets off to the north to study a very rare species of fairies. And she will be joined by her mentor, with who she doesn't get along very well. And we will follow not only how she does her research, but also how she and her mentor become more close. The last series is Le Manoir de Castle Cats by Alain T Puysségur. This is a French series that has not been translated. We follow 4 cats in their travels to a magical school to become mages, their entrance exams, and the first part of their studies. They will discover the world of magic and face some negative energies hanging around their school. I enjoyed to read this book and the fact that all characters are cats. I read this in a buddy read with one of my sons. I have 4 other series I am reading on my list that we will not discuss today, since I'm pretty sure I'll have finished them by April, and so we can talk about them in my April series wrap-up. Do you read any of these series? Or which one would you like to discover more about? Please let me know in the comments. See you soon!